Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Union Public Service Commission issued an ad on August 17th seeking applications for talented and motivated Indian nationals for lateral recruitment to the posts of Joint Secretary, Director, and Deputy Secretaries in 24 union ministries. And in total, I think there are about 45 posts for which this advertisement has been issued. Now, there's a whole controversy about it because the Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has been saying that this policy of lateral entrance is against the Constitution, where you don't have reservations for SCs, STs, and OBCs. And in fact, Rahul Gandhi has said that this lateral entry policy will pave way for the people in RSS. So, how does one make out for this policy as far as the lateral entrants are concerned? Joining me now is former IPS officer Yashovardhan Azad. So thank you so much for joining. We have the renowned economist Santosh Mehrotra with us. Thank you so much for joining. And let me begin with Santosh Mehrotra. The often visible argument which is seen is that it was UPAs which got in the policy of lateral entry in 2005. Now, what is the difference in this policy which you see when it was brought in 2005 and now that it has been introduced again?
Well, the one difference that I see is that we've really gone to scale in the last 10 years. I was part of government over most of that UPA period from 2006 to 2014. And I don't recall that many lateral entries messing around. And honestly, I regard them as a messing around type, as I will explain in my argument. I mean, let's just back up a little bit, Nilu, to understand why the government feels the need for it. The government feels the need for it because there is a foundational problem with the generalist Indian Administrative Service that the government has had in place for 75 years. Something that both knowledgeable people from within the IAS as well as senior economists like myself and many others have made the case that we are a very diversified economy, we are a very rapidly growing economy, and we have to have a capable civil service. And I'm sorry to say, a generalist civil service doesn't cut any ice any longer in 21st century India. I can tell you that not in the British bureaucracy, not in the US bureaucracy, not in the World Bank, not in the UN system, can people just be dumped onto, you can get I remember my days in the Planning Commission was heading a division. I would have staff, literally dumped in my division, regardless of whether they had any competence in the field, whether they had any knowledge in the field. And I had Indian Economic Service officers, I had other service officers who were, coming in. But that's a different thing. Point is, the government desperately needs lateral entries, it needs domain expertise. And they think that the way to solve it is in two ways. See, you're not talking about the other way, which this government has used massively, which the UPA never really used, which is what? You see, this government has massively outsourced a lot of professional work to Deloitte, EY, PwC, McKinsey, etc. That's one problem. That's one source of the problem. The other source of the problem, they're all attempting to deal with this generalist knowledge of the IS, and they can't cope with at least the Prime Minister can't cope with it. And the other way they found is, let's find the lateral entry. Now, clearly, with a combination of both these things happening, we have the following situation. And the situation is as follows. Let's just not forget that joint secretaries, staff of the joint secretary level from state governments are simply not willing to come to the center. They're just not willing to come. The center is starved of joint secretaries from the states. The joint secretaries want to remain because they find that they are being driven too hard here, one, and they have to also simultaneously show a certain bent of mind, which you refer to as RSS. It can be many, many other things as well. So what have we got here? The joint secretaries don't want to come. The IAS officers don't want to come from the states. The government is hard pressed. They don't have they only have the generalist IAS officers to deal with, and so they're desperately relying upon this lateral entry business on the one hand, and on the other hand, the PwC, McKinsey, etc. Problem doesn't get solved because you ultimately have to make sure that the IAS, its character must change, which is what I began by saying, that this is a country which is a very rapidly growing economy.
You are in favor of the lateral entry policy, and you say that
I'm
it should.
not. No. I'm not in favor. I'm in favor of a massive reform
Okay.
of the IAS so that you don't need lateral entries. Why do you need lateral entries? It's
Okay.
it's look, lateral entries, if they come in, they're bound to cause heartburn within the existing cadre, as it is causing heartburn. And this is part of the problem of joint secretaries not wanting to come.
But Professor Mehrotra, as far as I remember, I think it was 2005 when UPA had set up the second Administrative Reforms Commission, and that was chaired by Virappa Moily. Now, what
I
happened to
know.
that? And this,
Nothing happened. यही तो problem है. I have all the reports of the second ARC sitting here in my study right here, and I've been through it. And unfortunately, they didn't talk sufficiently about the need for
but the
domain expertise.
no, the criticism which is coming up, that saying that UPA had set up this policy, to which no, I read Congress
I
President's
mean,
statement.
they may no, that may be so. They set it up, but what the hell? They didn't go whole hog. These people in the last 10 years have just gone, literally they've gone berserk doing
No,
this.
but just hear me out,
Naturally,
Professor Mehrotra. What Mallikarjun Kharge has said, that we brought in this policy of lateral entry for some specific posts, not for
correct,
a large contingent like 45
correct,
posts. That's what he's saying.
precisely. So if you have to do it, it may well be that when you reform and ensure domain expertise within the IAS, you may still need some very highly specialized tasks to be done by lateral entrant. Look, I was a lateral entrant into the planning commission, so I should be the last one against it. However, हम इक्के दुक्के थे भाई. हम उस समय, मैं आपको मतलब सच में hand on heart I can say that my kind of people came in with specific expertise, and we were serving a purpose, but we
Right.
were literally, you could count them on the tips of your fingers.
That's what Mr. Kharge also has said, that it was just for specific posts. But coming to the politics of
Gee.
now, Mr. Azad, so this whole hullabaloo about lateral entry, do you think that is justified, where the opposition is saying that it is against the constitution and there is no reservation for the STs, SCs, and the OBCs? What would you say on that?
See, first of all, there is nothing wrong with lateral entry, no doubt at all. And in fact, that was the idea which the Congress regime tried to bring it in 2005 and 2010. But there is a hidden problem, which is a very, very serious problem with this. And that is that in our bureaucracy, what happens is, in our bureaucracy, everything is tailored for the powers that be, and that is the IAS. That is the biggest problem with lateral entry. Tell me, earlier on, there were a couple of consultants who were brought in. Now, the present joint secretaries are also glorified consultants. You see, unless you get in a Monte or a Bimal Jalan or Dr. Santosh Mehrotra as economic secretary or a finance secretary or head of the planning committee, nothing is going to change. You see, after all, to maintain a system, you're doing a little bit of input here, little bit of input there. Today, as Dr. Saab said, that the changes are so enormous I mean, all over the world, you are not able to do without domain expertise. You need top economists, you need top, technical guys in so many areas. And therefore, Congress, when Mr. Kharge says that for specific targets, specific areas, you should bring them in, it's absolutely correct. And I think no man would disagree with that. But if you are bringing it just like this, कि हाँ भाई हमें करना है, and initially I tell you, even Mr. Modi had the right idea to sort of cut down the bureaucracy and this babuguri and the IS system and bring in such experts, but he failed. So when he failed, you're doing a tinkering here. आप दो deputy secretary लगा दोगे अगर यहाँ, तो उससे क्या फर्क पड़ेगा ministry में भाई? I mean, he'll bring in some, he'll be advisory body, they'll keep on advising. And that is why this system will not work. So that is the main problem. Number two, you asked me about the reservation part. Now, there is a technical way of getting out of it. I'm not saying good about technical ways. These are single postings in different ministries in which the reservation need not go there. Otherwise, ye 45 mein 6 or 7 should have been there. That is also true. It wouldn't have made much of a difference. Mera कहना है कि, in these 45, let's get the people on merit. But the point is, unless they are able to contribute and do a policy deliverable, something which can change, otherwise they are just in an advisory capacity and the system will not work. For example, again,
won't help. So you're saying that the reservation on these lateral entry posts will not help too much.
Yeah, because you'll get 6 more people to make it more representative. So you will satisfy that part. But on a whole, this lateral system will not enrich the system. That's what I'm saying. Because the methodology which you're using is to basically maintain the same hierarchical structure and do a little bit of tinkering here, ek laga diya deputy secretary, ek joint secretary. It doesn't make a difference to the entire ministry at all. Why do space ministries and why do these highly technical ministries have domain experts? But the problem is politicians from any side, they are scared because they are so comfortable with an IS Babu that, they don't want to change. Because a person like Dr. Mehrotra will go and tell them, khari khati jo kehte hain na, samne suna denge. So which minister would like it?
Mr. Azad, you said that politicians are wary of these lateral entrants, but why politicians alone? Why not the bureaucrats as well?
Bureaucrats don't want them. Bureaucrats don't want them.
Yes,
IS agreed after a long time. That's a fact.
Azad sahab bilkul sahi keh rahe. He's right.
We know the system. But the politicians, I have told my own relatives, politicians and everyone, कि कुछ तो करो आप, नहीं तो आप खुद ही बैठ जाओगे एक दिन. That's happening, and you can see that.
Right. Now, Pushparaj is back with us. Pushparaj, now I want to understand the politics behind the lateral entry. What Mr. Kharge is saying, that, this is against the constitution where, and there is no reservation for the STs, SCs and the OBCs. It will lead to some sort of privatization of the bureaucracy. A lot of people from RSS will come on these posts. What would you say to that? Is the politics over it unnecessary? Does it not sound unnecessary?
One is that there is a structural problem within the kind of bureaucracy that we have. The Pooja Khedekar case and many others talk to many fault lines which have not been plugged. And as Professor Mehrotra was saying, the Second Administrative Commission did make a comprehensive study and made many suggestions that should have, ideally speaking, been implemented. That would, of course, doing that would, of course, be plugging this structural problem. That's one part of it. In that absence, in the time when you need to plug those, redress those structural fault lines, you have lateral entrants, which we are not averse to. When lateral entrants contribute to governance with their technical expertise or because they're business leaders, they do have much to contribute to national development and governance. You have Dr. Manmohan Singh, you have Montek Singh Ahluwalia, you have Professor Mehrotra himself, Gurdeep Singh Sapal. Many of them have come in from various fields, but these are at best temporary quick fixes to solve problems that are immediately cropping up, right? The real challenge is to have major overhaul of the administrative reform. That's one part of it. The second part of this is, yes, the UPA government also brought in lateral entrance, as did Narasimha Rao's government, as did Rajiv Gandhi's government. So there is no denying that. But there is a difference. You have to contextualize what is happening right now with this government as opposed to, and you juxtapose it to what has happened in the previous governments. This government, in the last 10 years, has through the national monetization pipeline decided to sell off, I think, 13 lakh crores of public sector assets. I know for a fact that in the last 10 years, over 5.1 lakh jobs have been lost because of privatization. Plus, because of increased contractualization, which adversely affects SC, ST, OBCs, there is almost one, in the last year alone, 22 and 23, there were 1.3 lakh SC, ST, OBC posts that were lost. That is the second thing. And the third thing is that this government has, over the last 5-6 years, spoken, many of its leaders have publicly spoken about ending reservations, about reviewing reservations. They have increased, they just talked about, they've not taken out the Rohini Commission for after multiple extensions. So my point is that you need to contextualize what they are doing right now as a in context of what they have done in the last 10 years. The backlog continues to be unusually high. The backlog of SC, ST, OBC posts. I don't have the exact figures right now, but anyone can go and check. And Rahul Gandhi, of course, publicly talked about the fact that amongst 90 secretaries, you have only 3 as SC, ST, OBC. So this is an issue as a social justice issue. When you have a as I mean, when it is constitutionally enshrined, when you want to adhere to that, you need to also continue doing fulfilling all those steps that you have agreed to do. When you don't do that, and instead you go and try to reverse those constitutional provisions for the welfare of these communities, and then you bring in lateral entrance, what happens is that you raise questions on your integrity. Problem niyat ki hai. This government's character, this government's intention is the problem. If any other government were doing this, perhaps the issue would have been debated
No,
on
but
its merits alone.
when you question the intent of the government, what is your fear? That will the lateral entrance take over the entire bureaucracy? What is the real fear? What is the imminent danger? Which is
No, Niluji, that is not the fear. The fear is, see, look at this. We have 2 veterans here who have served for decades in governance, right? You know what happened when the Janata Dal government came into government. What did Advani ji at that time was the INB minister. All of them stuffed the INB ministry, the stuffed media with RSS-minded people. Many of them today are heading TV channels, and they actually subverted governance. I don't want to take names, but look at what happened in UPA too. Many of these people were there in UPA government. The levers of governance stopped functioning in UPA too. The CAG sector, the CAG, the Home Secretary, the Bombay Commissioner, the Chief of Army Staff, the Home Secretary. I can go on to name the Permanent Ambassador to the UN. Why is it that these people suddenly stopped functioning? Maybe they were just turncoats who were wanting to piggyback on what they saw was changing political tides, and they jumped. But it's also possible that many of them were infiltrators, because the RSS has always been infiltrators. They have infiltrated organizations. That is what they have done. That is their stated policy. This is what Savarkar and others said in 1942 when we were fighting for Quit India, fighting in the Quit India movement. They were saying कि भैया आप ये सब मत join करो, join the government, infiltrate government. So my point is, this is a long-standing RSS policy to infiltrate, be sleeper cells when you are in opposition, but then you start informing the BJP and other such right-wing organizations with information that is crippling to the government. That is the fear. The fear is that any government will not be able to implement its constitutional welfare agenda if the RSS and the BJP infiltrate using this lateral entrance scheme. That is the real fear. Not that lateral entrance से थोड़ी problem है. वो technical fix है अभी, no doubt. And जो Mehrotra साहब कह रहे हैं, that is perfectly valid. That we need to have structural changes and reforms. Fair enough. But what about the RSS and the BJP? Can you uncontextualize their political and ideological imperatives from their governance imperatives? Can you say that they've done this in the last 10 years? No, you can't.
of course. So this is one part of it. But Mr. Azad, I think you were raising your hand also. And one quick question to you only: that is lateral entry some kind of a quick fix solution which Modi government is trying to bring in? Because obviously they cannot overhaul the entire administrative system immediately. and they want to be seen as a government which is performing, which is quick with bureaucracy. So is that a quick fix solution which the Modi government is looking at? And that's why this ad has been issued to bring in like some 45 lateral entrants.
Listen, just let me start with something very basic. You see, I was speaking at the change overall of criminal laws at the AICC had organized, and I had gone to speak with Mr. Chidambaram. And I said, you're talking about grassroots democracy. Grassroots democracy is starting with Gram Panchayat. Then you're talking about Jila Parishad. Then you're talking state. All these are run by the elected representatives. But you can't run a district by elected representatives. You have a same Lad Sahib collector, right? So you don't have a Zila Parishad, which can't run a district. So similarly, the same thing is happening in bureaucracy over here, where you have such an inflated bureaucracy that you have 150 secretaries. I mean, and you have 4 to 5, 8 secretaries in the Economic Affairs Department, but you don't want to put a Montek or a Dr. Mehrotra or a Bimal Jalan in it. I mean, tell me, how can the entire approach to bureaucracy be better if you're just tinkering here and there? So look at, for example, Rajiv Gandhi. The technology mission was his idea. That's how you look at changes in a broader perspective. And number 3, that's why my point is, again, that when you brought in these lateral entries, have you done an outcome assessment, like the outcome monitoring, which Dr. Mehrotra used to do in Planning Commission, and they had come up with that concept? So have you done that now? If you've done that, let the country know, and then people will get an idea. So unless you do this, I mean, the other things will not really going to make a difference.
Absolutely. So I'll come to the concluding part to you, Mr. Mehrotra, and then finally to Pushparaj. To you, sir, first. So what should be the government doing? As of now, they've announced a post. UPSC has announced a post on August 18. Now, as a prescription, if I may ask you, what should the government be doing?
बिल्कुल देखिए, you see, what is the heartburn? Where is the heartburn coming from? देखिए, आम आदमी और खासतौर से जो SC ST OBC का रिजर्वेशन वाली बात है, वहां हार्टबर्न हो रहा। अच्छा, वो हार्टबर्न क्यों हो रहा है, ये भी थोड़ा सा समझने की आवश्यकता है। आवश्यकता ये है कि देखिए, सरकार में एक तो पहली चीज तो सरकार का एक्सपेंशन नहीं हो रहा, यानी कि सिविल सर्विस में जो रिक्त स्थान है, इस समय 10 लाख रिक्त स्थान है और उसकी भरपाई नहीं हो रही, पहली बात। राज्य सरकारों में, ये तो मैं केंद्र सरकार की बात कर रहा हूँ, इसके बारे में मैंने एक पीस अभी लिखा है आउटलुक में, मैं आप सबको भेजूंगा अब तो। और फिर राज्य सरकारों में बेहद रिक्तियां हैं और उनको भरा नहीं जा रहा, तो एक प्रॉब्लम वो है। और सारी हमारे देश की सरकारों को ये रियलाइज करना पड़ेगा कि हमारी सिविल सर्विस बहुत छोटी है, हमें उसको बढ़ाना पड़ेगा। मगर एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा इसमें ये है, और मैंने ये आंकड़ा फिर परसों फिर निकाला कि 87% ऑफ आवर एम्प्लॉइज, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में हो चाहे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट हो, आर ग्रुप सी। मतलब वो पहले ग्रुप सी और डी था, अब और यानी कि 87 अगर ग्रुप सी है तो यू हैव ओनली 13% ऑफ द कैलिबर ऑफ आजाद साहब, एंड आई कम इन एज एन लैटरल एंट्री। अब आप सोचिए कि महाकाय देश, इतनी समस्याएं, इतनी जटिलताएं, और उसमें आप इन सब से चाम चले, तो आप ऐसी स्थिति में आप देश नहीं चला सकते हैं भाई। अच्छा, तो अब उसमें होगा क्या? आप अगर और भर्ती करते जाओगे ग्रुप सी और ग्रुप डी में, और वहीं SC ST को मार खा जाते, वहीं OBC सबसे अधिक मार खा जाते। अब चक्कर ये है कि आप और ग्रुप सी और डी भर नहीं सकते, तो आपको जरूरी यह है कि आपको ग्रुप बी और ए के लिए पोस्टें बढ़ानी होंगी। ग्रुप सी में एट्रिशन जो हो रहा है वो होना पड़ेगा, मगर इसके लिए जो हमारे देश का जो वंचित वर्ग है, मतलब मैं जाहिर है SC ST और OBC की बात कर रहा हूं, उनको आपको शिक्षा इस प्रकार की वांछित और गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा प्रदान करनी पड़ेगी, और उच्च शिक्षा यानी कि हायर एजुकेशन without their all getting access to on a much larger scale on scholarships and so on. तो ये सब करना होगा, वरना ये सब प्रॉब्लम ये कश्मकश चलती रहेगी नीलू जी.
No, but Professor Mehrotra, what Mr. Kharge has pointed out, and he's put out some figures also. The BJP has eliminated 5.1 lakh posts in last 10 years by selling the share of Government of India in PSUs alone. That is one
वो
point.
भी बात है, वो आपकी
Casual.
सही है.
Right, but the casual and the contractual recruitment has increased by 91%. That is also one
भाई
figure.
उसका
which
वो
has
भी
been
सही है भाई.
वो भी
नीलू
सही.
जी देखिए, मैं कोई गलत नहीं, वो लोग गलत नहीं कह रहे, मगर देखिए ये प्रॉब्लम सच मानिए, मानना पड़ेगा यूपीए के सरकार वालों को और कांग्रेस को भी मानना पड़ेगा कि पहली चीज वो भर्ती नहीं कर रहे थे, दूसरी चीज उन्होंने जो शिक्षा पे जो निवेश होना चाहिए था, खासतौर से वंचित लोगों की शिक्षा की गुणवत्ता पे जो निवेश होना चाहिए था, तो जो अब आईआईटी आईआईएम्स और ऐसी जो संस्थाएं हैं एनआईटी वगैरह, उनका एक्सपेंशन करिए ना जबरदस्त तौर से, मेक देम यूनिवर्सिटीज दैट यू नो द एनईपी इज टॉकिंग अबाउट. तो आप यानी कि वो हजारों की संख्या में छात्रों की आवश्यकता है. अगर आप वो एक्सपेंशन कर, अब मैं जेएनयू टॉप रैंक यूनिवर्सिटी में वहां पढ़ा चुका हूं, ठीक है. all I'm saying is in these 30 seconds I want you to appreciate that in JNU we went from 4,500 students in 2000, I think 6 or 7, to double that to about 8,000 students because we gave OBC reservation. Now, what does that mean? We have to massify our quality higher education institutions. और ऐसा नहीं है. It's not true that JNU has lost its ranking. JNU is still the top ranked university.
Yeah.
This is the point. And you have to continue to invest in higher education, especially for the marginalized, and that's what's absolutely essential. Then the heartburn that we are talking about among the underprivileged, and the heartburn is very justified. They deserve to be. Rahul Gandhi is absolutely right कि ये 97 secretaries में 3 OBCs वगैरह. So he's absolutely right. We've got to solve this, but solve this in the way that I am suggesting.
No, but Professor Mehrotra, would it be right to say that this policy of lateral entry is anti-constitution and it's an anti-national step which has been taken by the government?
It is the way they are implementing it. It is not working. It is causing more heartburn. It is not solving the problem, as both Mr. Azad and I have argued.
All right. Mr. Azad, what would you say in 30 seconds towards the end of it? Yes.
As I told you, in totality, the system was started off with a different kind of a perspective. And it didn't come through at that particular time. But now the way it's being pushed through, in totality, as Dr. Saban said, and I have already mentioned, it does not seem to be achieving its purpose. And what has been gained so far also, that is also not there for the public to see. That is the problem one has with this entire induction.
Right. So we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Mr. Azad, Professor Mehrotra. It was wonderful having you on the program, and one appeal to the viewers who are watching this discussion: subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to The Federal. Thank you.